Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We have got your Fulham versus Leeds United preview. Yes, the big match this weekend, and I'm really excited for it actually because I think this is a really good opportunity for Leeds United to pick up points. Yes, Fulham are a good team. They beat Liverpool last year at home. They drew it with Arsenal at home last year. But actually, against the worst teams, they have got a bit of a poor record, which we will talk about. And there's also some really good stats about Fulham as well, about some interesting things that could be broken this weekend, which we're going to talk about too. But let's start focus on Leeds United and where we're at with this game. I think starting with it, I think Leeds United come into this game in a good stead. I think we come in with the good points total so far. I think we're all particularly happy with 4 points from our first 3 games. We've had the international break. We've managed to integrate the likes of DCL, Okafor back into the 11. And as you can see, this would be my 11 to go for. And I would put them 2 straight back into the team. We have got the likes of, I think, Ethan Ampadu will probably be back for this game as well. Tanaka should be able to make an appearance off the bench as well, which could be late cutting if it comes down to it in the final few embers of the game, and we can bring Tanaka on maybe in the 70th minute and he can play the pass through to get Leeds United a winner. This potentially all could happen, and that's why I'm excited. And to be honest with you, all week I've sort of been on the feeling that Leeds United are probably going to lose this game. However, looking into Fulham, I think there's opportunities to beat them, you know. I really, really do. And potentially I might sort of go to that in my score prediction sort of at the end of the video. But we'll get there. In terms of injury news, obviously, we know Perry will miss the game. I think it looks like to me that Ampadu will be back for this game, as I said, with Tanaka as well. We know Nemet's struggling with the foot injury. We know Perot might miss the game as well with an injury that he took in training. But we've got Rodon back, as I said. And actually, now, if you look at the 11, as you can see on my left-hand side, it looks pretty strong in my opinion. And I'm going to talk you through some of the decisions that I'm going to make in the team. I think Darlow in goal is the obvious one over of course, Meslier for me. I think Darlow has shown for me that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, Darlow. I think he's just a steady head that comes in. Yes, he's going to make loads of fantastic saves, but he's also not going to cost Leeds United tons of points either, in my personal opinion. So I don't hate that too much, and I don't think that's as big an issue as potential people are making out. Bogle obviously starts at right back. Rodon obviously starts at right centre-back as well. Their combination, I think their understanding of the game with them two and the sort of synergy that them two have is fantastic, and I'd keep that with it. Biol, I have put back in for this game. Now, the reason I've put Biol in is because we're coming up against Rodrigo Muniz, a really powerful, strong striker. We know Anthony Robinson is fantastic at whipping crossing from that left-hand side. And I think we need someone to combat that. And I think Biol, in terms of penalty box striker, someone who's going to sort of man-mark someone out of the game, I think that Muniz, the person to handle Muniz best, would be Biol, in my opinion. I think he's a better penalty box defender, in my opinion, than Struijk. I know he's had a bit of a challenging time on international break. But for me, Struijk is going to be more useful in the games where we're trying to dominate possession. I actually look at this game and I would be giving sort of Fulham the initiative to come at Leeds United as opposed to Leeds United having the initiative to go and beat Fulham. I think they struggle when they've got the initiative on it. And we're going to talk about that sort of later when we look at the Fulham sort of statistics against the bottom teams last year, because it is actually quite remarkable how poor they are against the sort of bottom teams. But yeah, so for me, Biol would make it, as I said, and I think that Struijk is definitely could start the game. And I actually think if you want my humble opinion of what Daniel Farke will do, I think he will start Pascal Struijk in that left-hand side centre-back. But for me personally, now Biol's had some time away with international break and had some minutes under his belt, I think he's ready to go. I know, as I said, he's doing poorly there, but if we're spending that sort of money on a penalty box defender and we're playing against one of the best penalty box strikers potentially in the division in Rodrigo Muniz, I think you've got to play him in this one for me. Goodmanson, I think, has been fantastic for Leeds United. Obviously going to start him at left back. I think there's no doubts and no qualms about that. I think literally the fan base can sometimes be sort of different on opinions, but I don't think there's anybody in the Leeds United sphere that would pick anyone other than Goodmanson at left back. And I would put Ampadu straight back in the team. I think especially in away games, the presence of having your captain in the midfield has always been a thing that Leeds United have relied on, and we've actually struggled. Our away record, especially with Ampadu, more than the home record really, with and without Ampadu, has been there and glaring to see since he's obviously come to the club over 2 years ago now. So for me, I would, if he's fit and ready to go, I would put him straight back in. And obviously he's had that extra time on Tanaka. He's been in team training all this week. I'd put him straight in there. I don't think Gruev is the perfect person for this, and I think Ampadu's just such a step up, even in terms of his leadership, but obviously in terms of his ability on the ball and off the ball as well. I think he's better in basically every concept than Gruev. Then I would go with a midfield 2 of Stack and Tanaka. Now, if Stack and Longstaff, should I say. Now, the reason I'm going with that, I probably wouldn't play that formation that's there. I wouldn't play 4-2-3-1. I won't put Longstaff in the 10. I'd probably go with your sort of a 4-3-3 with sort of Ampadu holding, and then your sort of 2 number 8s. That would be the way I played as such. And the reason for this is I don't think, from all accounts, Tanaka's going to be quite ready for the game. Obviously, he did his MCL injury the week after Ampadu. Yes, there could be sort of differences in terms of the injury sustained, in terms of not all MCL injuries are the same. But I don't think I'd want to rush Tanaka back for this game, because I actually think if we've got a Tanaka, an Ampadu, Stack and Longstaff midfield in there, I actually really like that for this game. I think the dominance that we've seen from Longstaff, and also, as I said, Longstaff's played really well. And if you play really well, you've got to keep your shirt at times. Obviously, we've got to pick players for the best game, and I think in our best 11, in my opinion, Tanaka would be in there. But in an away game, I really don't hate Longstaff going in there. I think it gives us a bit more reassurance defensively as well. I think his ability to cover ground is much better than Tanaka. And as I said, for me, in a game where I want to give the initiative to Fulham, I think Longstaff suits that. So I quite like the idea of a Longstaff stack midfield. And also, it allows Tanaka to then develop back from his injury, come back in the sort of greatest, in the best way possible, not risk another injury. And then, of course, if it gets to the 70th minute and he is available for the game, you can bring him on. And we can potentially have that creative spark in there that obviously AO Tanaka does offer probably more than Longstaff. So I think that's something to definitely look at some point. But yeah, as I said, I think that's a really strong midfield. And I think if you're coming up against that Fulham, you're thinking, oh, that's going to be a battle in the midfield, because there's so many people that can cover ground there, all great tacklers, pretty decent. I think the lack of creation is potentially an issue in the midfield, but it's not an awful situation. And the way I want to hurt Fulham, for me, is on the counter-attack. So again, I don't think you need that full-on creator. I think you can get the ball, if you move the ball quickly through the midfield, you can get them counter-attacks going. And then that goes on to the front line. And I think what people are probably going to be most surprised with my front three is that Dan James is on the right-hand side. Now, the reason for this is a number of reasons, but let's start on the ball. I think this game, as I said, I want to give the initiative to Fulham, and people won't like that potentially, but I think this is the way to do it, and I'll explain that later. So I want to give the initiative to Fulham in this game. I think we want to try and get them to break us down, as opposed to us trying to sort of dominate the ball and break them down. I think that's the better way to go about it. And if we're going to do that, and they're going to have more of the ball, Fulham, I think we need to look to counter-attack. And the best person for the counter-attack on the right-hand side for me is Dan James, because he's absolutely rapid. And he obviously offers that the speed in behind. And the big gaps that will open up when Robinson goes forward, he should be able to capitalise on, potentially more than Wilfred Gnonto. I think Gnonto, for me, would suit more a game where, as I said, we're looking to have more possession. So potentially the home games, I think Gnonto would suit more when we're looking to dominate the ball a bit more. But in these away games, I think that the pace of Dan James and also his defensive work rate, for me, suits this game much more. And that goes on to his defensive ability. Because one of the sort of worries I've got with this Fulham side of all of it is that left-back position. Obviously, Sessegnon has started the season at Fulham at left-back, who is obviously really good going forward. And also they've got Anthony Robinson there, who I think potentially should be back for this game. And if Robinson plays at the back, at left-back for this game, well, he's fantastic going forward. He registered the 4th most assists in the whole of the Premier League last season. So if you're looking at where Fulham's strengths are, that left-back and the left-back pushing on and whipping crosses in is a huge strength for them. And I think the best person we've got to sort of mark and sort of be defensively disciplined and mark Robinson out of the game, for me, will be Dan James. I think he's the better defensive sort of player of the two. In between Gnonto and James, in my opinion. So I would pick James for that speed in behind that he offers, for the counter-attack that I think we should be trying to implement in this game, but also as well for the defensive work rate and his defensive capabilities and his discipline in terms of stopping Robinson. Because I think if he prevents Robinson going forward, I think that will really, really dampen sort of one of Fulham's main attacking outlets. And especially when you've already got Stack, Longstaff and Ampadu in the midfield, stopping the likes of Josh King and Sander Berg getting on the ball and dictating the game from there, and Sasha Lukic. I think that will work quite nicely for us, in my opinion. And then we look at where we can hit Fulham and where we can sort of, as I said, have an opportunity to go at them. And I actually look at that, our left-hand side, their right-hand side, and think that is the side to go at, because that's where the weaker fullback will be. Obviously, it's Kenny Tete or potentially Castagna there. It probably will be Tete. And I think Okafor, I think this is where Okafor can have a good go at Tete. I think that's a real opportunity for Leeds United to exploit the game and get at Fulham, especially on that right-hand side. And the pace of obviously Okafor and the power, I think, should really, really suit this game. So I would definitely pick him on that left-hand side, in my opinion. Because the thing with Nonto is as well, like if we're struggling in the game and struggling to get on the ball and stuff, you can also bring him on in the number 10 role as well, if that becomes an option. Or you could bring Tanaka and Nonto on to keep the possession a bit more, because I think they are better sort of keeping the ball potentially than the other players that we've got in the lineup at the moment. And then of course, Calvert-Lewin up front. Now, this is probably going to be a sort of self-selection itself in terms of Nemec looks like he's struggling with a bit of an injury. Perot is, so it's probably going to have to be Calvert-Lewin. But I think that's perfect. He's the striker I would pick for this game. And if I can give him any advice this game, I know he won't be watching, but it would be, for me, get yourself on Calvin Bassey. Get yourself on Calvin Bassey. Fulham have conceded 5 penalties in the last 5 Premier League games. The first team, if they get a 6th penalty this weekend, it'll be the first time they've done that ever in the Premier League history, because they've got, in my opinion, quite a clumsy defender. Yes, Bassey, I think sort of his physical attributes are really good, but I think he does make clumsy decisions at times. So for me, I'd be getting crosses into Calvert-Lewin, and I'd be getting Calvert-Lewin to be on Bassey and get on Bassey's side, as opposed to Anderson, who I think is a really strong Premier League defender. But I think if you get on Bassey and get at Tete, I think that's a really, really good place for Leeds United to exploit this Fulham team, because I think and I think you could win penalties, I think, in this game for sure. Because I don't think Bassey's got that defensive sort of discipline to not just fight for the ball at all costs. We saw it against Man United when he gave a stupid penalty away. I believe on, who was it penalty on? I can't fully remember, but they gave away a daft penalty, obviously, in that game when he dragged, was it Mason Mount to the floor potentially? But yeah, so I think that if I'm Calvert-Lewin, I'm sticking my whole time on Calvin Bassey. Yes, he's physically dominant, is Calvin Bassey. I don't think quite as dominant, in my opinion, as Anderson, but he's probably got that recovery pace that Anderson doesn't have. But in terms of getting crosses in, you want it to get, you want Goodmanson flying down the left-hand side, crossing it in, and Calvert-Lewin up against Bassey and make him make a decision defensively, because I think that's where Fulham could potentially slip up. Now, one thing I've mentioned in this preview so far is about the fact that I want Fulham to try, that Leeds United should let Fulham have the ball and be a bit more reserved and let them play a bit. And the reason for this is I was looking back at last season, and I knew this anyway to an extent, but I didn't quite realise to the extent that this was an issue for Fulham, which I think is really fascinating. So listen to this. Last season, Fulham, against the bottom 12 teams. Now, obviously, one of the bottom 12 teams is actually Fulham themselves, so they can't play themselves, of course. There was 11 teams here. But this was their record at home last season against the bottom 11 teams, or 12 teams, not including Fulham. They lost to Everton, they lost to Palace, they lost to Wolves, they lost to Man United. They drew at home with Ipswich, which required a 91st minute penalty from Jiménez to get a draw, but they did draw with Ipswich. They drew with Bournemouth, they drew with Southampton, who we know were awful last year, as were Ipswich, and they drew with West Ham as well at home. Actually, the only 3 teams they beat in the bottom 12 at home last season was Spurs, was Leicester, which was 2-1, and was Brentford. But if anyone watched the Brentford game, I think it was a Monday Night Football, and it required a 92nd minute equaliser when they were 1-0 down, and then a 97th minute winner. So that isn't going to happen week in, week out, and you've seen that with their other results. So Fulham do struggle when the onus is on them to go and win the game. I think what you see with Fulham, like they've picked a lot of good results last season. They beat Liverpool at home. They drew with at Anfield. They drew away at Stamford Bridge. They've drawn with Arsenal. Like they're very good at picking up points when the onus isn't on them to win the game, and when they can apply a counter-attacking style. And I think you even saw that against Chelsea earlier in the season. I think, was it last weekend or the week before? And I think they got a bit unlucky in that game due to injuries, and not due to injuries, due to poor refereeing decisions and stuff like that. Like, I don't think the Josh King goal should have been ruled out. He looks a threat, by the way. I think he will be a problem again. But yeah, I think they were a bit unlucky in the Chelsea game. And again, it shows Fulham's ability to go and beat the top 6 teams. And I remember listening to this and then thinking back and sort of looking into it. And I remember Tom Kearney, I think, was on Monday Night Football, and he said one of their biggest issues and one of their main frustrations last year's Fulham is they struggle to beat the lower teams in the division. And obviously, I'm not expecting Leeds to be in the top 8 this season. Again, so if we set up like them teams did last season, I think we can really get something in this game. And I think it's a really good opportunity for Leeds United to pick up some serious points in this game. Because as I said, like Ipswich were a few minutes away from getting a win last season. Southampton got a draw last season. Leicester, who all got relegated, Leicester only lost by 1. And then they lost to Everton 3-1. Palace, they lost to Wolves. They got smashed by Man United. They lost to, we know, were awful. So, like, if them teams can all go there and get a result, there's no reason why Leeds United can't. And I think, again, this is a understanding of, again, if you look at the teams that they beat Spurs again, who were probably on the front foot in that game and trying to win the game, and then they can pick them off. So, as I said, what I've understood from this is when the onus has been on Fulham to go win a game, they really, really struggle, which is why in this game, I think Daniel Farke should set Fulham up to let them have the ball and let them try break us down and give them the onus to try beat Leeds United. And then we can exploit the likes of Okafor on the left-hand side, hopefully getting a one-on-one situation, or running Anderson if we can get in behind Tete, or at least a one-on-one with Tete. And then you can get Dan James with his pace in behind, causing them problems as well. And I think if we get up in the game, I do actually think Leeds United can go on and win the game, because that is what we've seen from Fulham under Marco Silva. So it's going to be interesting how Fulham get on. And actually, to be honest, away from this whole game, if I was a Fulham fan, I think I would be a bit worried, because are the results going to continue against the top 6 teams? I don't know. Potentially they are, but we're not sure. But if they don't continue getting points against the top 6 teams and they're losing in games that they should win, they could find themselves slipping down the league this year, for sure. So I think that's something to bear in mind if you're a Fulham fan. Obviously, they might look at it different and go, if we can start beating these teams at home, then potentially we can get the opposite effect and we can sort of rise up the table even further. But I think that's something to bear in mind. Although there is a bit of a sort of underlying to this, which is that Leeds United's record in London is horrendous. We haven't actually won in London since the Brentford game. Do you know, the game that kept us up when Rafinha was a Rafinha masterclass? And obviously we won the game. Did we win the game 2-1? Yeah, it was 2-1, wasn't it? Yeah. When we beat Brentford 2-1 in the final game of the season, that obviously kept Leeds United in the league under Jesse Marsh in the 2022-23 season. That was the last time we won a top flight game in London. My honest opinion with this, though, is that I don't think it matters. I don't think this onus about we always lose in London. I've never bought into it. I think it's different match plans. It's a different game. It's a different team. I just don't buy it. So I know conspiracy theorists will look at that and go, we always lose in London, Scott. Personally, I wouldn't look into it too much, in my opinion. My more concern about this game, in terms of from a Leeds United standpoint, is that I think that Fulham, as I said, I think Fulham are a decent team. I think Muniz is a good striker. I'm worried that Kevin's going to come in on the left-hand side and be a sort of terrific new signing for them. Obviously, they brought in from Shakhtar Donetsk. Chukwueze is obviously a new sign as well. I think could add something in this game. So them players do worry me. I think the only thing that I would say, I'm back to that, or sort of reversing my own argument, is that, of course, them players are not quite up to full speed yet. So they might not even start the game. Like I almost expect that he will, but he'll start over Kevin on that left-hand side. So, and if that is the case, then I think that, again, is much a positive for Leeds United. Obviously, he could have an impact quite clearly off the bench. But yeah, that is the situation with the preview. I hope you've enjoyed the video, but obviously, you're waiting for my score prediction. And as I said, with this game, for me, I think Leeds United can win it. And that's why I might be a bit bold. And having said all week that we're going to, thinking in my own head, we're probably going to lose the game, this does seem a bit crazy. But it's just the fact that I look at the stats and look at what's been the case when Fulham have had the option to go and beat a team and the owners to go beat a team, and they've struggled with it. And I think that, why can't we do that? And if we've got to be positive on this channel. If we're not going to pick up points against Fulham, I do worry where potentially the points are going to come from. I know we've got a good run after that as well for sort of the next 5 games after. But I think this is a good opportunity with their poor record against the sort of lower teams at home. So I am actually going to go with Leeds United win. Yeah, I am. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Leeds United win. I think we're going to score early in the first half, maybe like the 30th minute, some point in the first half anyway. Then Fulham are going to build up pressure in the second half, and I think later on we're going to get a second goal and kill the game. And I think we're going to win it. That's how I think it's going to go. And I think we're going to catch him on the break both times. Obviously in the first half, I think early-ish on, and then I think obviously in the second half, I think later on in the game, maybe like 85th minute plus, they'll be throwing everyone forward to try to get back into it, and I think we can catch them on the break again and knock them over 2-0. So that is, I'm honestly going to go with a 2-0 win. People might go biased, and you will see on this channel, I'm not going to predict a Leeds United win every week. But if you're asking my feeling right now, as I'm recording this, that is what I'm feeling. So there you are. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively, massively helps the channel, especially in a lower time like it has been with the international break. And yeah, come on Leeds United Day. But yeah, thanks all for watching, as always, and I'll catch you on the next one, everybody. Bye for now.